Hey everybody, welcome back to our third episode of the Help Me Parent podcast. Today we have Dr. Ellen Moore, as always, back with us in the studio. And we have Erica, who has been with us before. But Erica, in case we have new people coming in, how long have you been a mom? How old are your kids?
My children I have 4 girls, and they are 8, 7, 5, and 3. So, yes.
I think it's impressive that you remember that so off the top of your head.
Don't ask me their birthdays.
Yeah. January 1st. And then we also have a new mom to the podcast, not a new mom at all. This is Gina. Gina, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, I'm a single mom. I have 2 boys. My boys are a little older, 17 and 13. So
17, 13, yeah.
I think Kylie just called you an old mom.
she did.
I did?
She
that
tried not to, but she did.
She did.
I mean, she wasn't a new mom. Wow.
Certainly not a new mom.
Not a new mom. Wow. I'm so sorry. Okay, so we have a fun icebreaker question for y'all, including everybody. What is one kids show as a mom that you would eliminate so that no mom has to sit through or no parent has to sit through it again? I mean, I
am
have some.
sure I am going to make some enemies, but I cannot stand SpongeBob. I never even let our kids watch it. It was so sarcastic. I just couldn't. And the voices, they just got on my nerves.
Yeah.
I don't let my kids watch that one either. But mine's not a TV show, but there's a YouTube channel. There's nothing, it's no bad content. It's fine. But the guy in it, and I can't even tell you the name of it, but he has the most annoying laugh. And he laughs the entire time. So he's just always going. And I'm like, turn that off. That's what I would eliminate if I could.
Is it Blippi?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's,
That
no,
was my
it's for
thought.
like my kids watch it. My nephews watch it.
Yeah.
And he lives in Houston. It's this YouTuber guy.
Really?
Yes, they just do silly things like throw watermelons off of the roof and stuff.
Yeah,
But
very educational stuff.
yeah, it's just the laugh that gets me. I'm like, it's got to go.
I mean, truthfully, none of it really bothers me that much, just because I tune it out. But I also thought of a YouTube channel, because that is what my kids watch a lot of. And the Cookie Swirl C is a YouTube channel that they love, and it is so annoying. And it's like people playing with Barbie dolls, and they're dubbing the voices. I'm just like, this is the most annoying thing I've ever heard. So, yeah.
That's fun. I don't remember watching any of those, but I'm glad I grew up before that time. Okay, so let's kick off this episode with a question. What are the best ways to invest in your child's view of God in all their different ages?
That's a big question. Over lots of years. I really think it is one of our main jobs as parents to give our kids a picture of who God is. That's where his representation on earth to our kids. But you can't represent somebody who you don't know. And so one of the best ways, and I think you can't do it without doing this, if you want to give your kids an accurate picture of who God is, you have to know him yourself and learn to explore his character, learn to engage with him, find out how he shows up, and then as you do that, talk to your kids about it. I think that's one of the things that maybe it's easy to do as parents, is kind of separate our lives, like our human being life and then our parent life. And I don't think we're supposed to separate that. I think we're supposed to include it all with our kids. Now, obviously, you don't tell your kids everything that's going on. You do things that are age and developmentally appropriate, but to the degree that is appropriate for their age, talk to them about how God is showing up for you, or what you're struggling with, or what you did struggle with and then God helped you. And I think we know these things, and maybe we are super thankful for it in our own minds, our own hearts, or we might talk about it with our spouse or with a friend or a family member, but we sometimes forget to talk about it with our kids. And I know Philip and I realized this, I think the kids were in junior high, and he and I were talking about some way the Lord had just helped us financially, that we had a financial thing, and the Lord just showed up and provided. And I was like, we were talking about it, and I was like, you know what? I think we should tell the kids about this, because it was something God did for our family. So I think that is living your life with God, get to know him, and then share with your kids what you find out and how he shows up.
Yeah. How have you done it with your boys, kind of growing up as a single mom? How have you been able to pour into them and finding the time to pour into yourself as well?
I think exactly what Ellen said is what I've tried to do. And one thing that came to mind is that when it seemed like it was maybe a little bit easier when my boys were little, because they're not too cool for school. They believe in all of it, and they're not questioning any of it. As they've gotten older, sometimes those moments where I'm like, the Lord's going to help us. We're going to have everything that we need. Those kinds of things. It can be a little awkward because your older kids might roll their eyes or, they don't know, but I still do it anyways. And I always make sure to point out too, that was the Lord. He was helping you. You had favor in that moment, and that's because of the Lord. Yeah. And so all of the things that Ellen was talking about, those are the things that I've really tried to do.
I think that's really good, is to remember to give God credit
Oh, yeah.
when he shows up, and to remind your kids, that didn't just happen. It happened because I prayed that, or we prayed that, or you prayed that. I remember when our son, Josh, he was, would have been in 4th grade, and he had this prayer list of things he was praying for, but at the top of the list was a dog, and he was real specific. He wanted a golden retriever. Well, it was right when we first came to this church here in Conroe, and somebody just came up to Philip and said, hey, I have this golden retriever who I can't take care of anymore. Would you be interested? And he was like, yes. And then to be able to give that to Josh and say, look, God heard you. He cares about the things you want. It's super fun.
Yeah.
Erica's good at this too.
Yeah. How do you do it with your girls being younger and also all their different ages? How do you kind of tackle it from telling them in their age appropriate way or just having them as younger kids?
Well, I mean, one thing that we've done that just kind of reminded me of that, because when they are young, you're praying the prayers for them. You're believing the Lord for them. And of course, you have to teach them as they get older. But for the first few years, they're not aware. But God is doing stuff in their life. So one thing that I have done actually is keep a journal for each kid and write down the things that I've seen the Lord do for them. Because I thought, when they're 25 and they are older, if they ever have a question of like, yeah, but has God ever really done something for me? I want them to have this thing where it's like, no, because when you were 3 months old, God healed you from this, or God provided this way. And I wanted there to be this record for them when I still had the authority to ask the Lord for these things and say, no, God has done miracles for you. Whenever my older ones have said yes to Jesus, I've recorded that. Like Laura especially just had a really sweet story, really great moment. And I wrote it all down so that, because she's not going to remember it, when she's older. So I've got those, which, because it is you investing and all that, but it was like, that's just a tangible way I could give it to them and show them, look what God's done. So
that's so good. That is a brilliant idea.
Yeah, that blew my mind.
That is, that's really good, because you do have to remind them when, after our son graduated from college, he went through the police academy and became a police officer. and went through a time that he was having a really hard time in that season. But we had to do exactly that. We're like, no, Josh, remember back in 7th grade when God did this? Do you remember when you were a freshman in college and God did this? You have heard him. God has guided you.
Yeah.
He did it then. He will still do it now. So having that record is really good.
Yeah. From a kid's perspective, my parents growing up, we went to church, and like I was in Sunday school, but I remember coloring, and I remember talking about just like fun things. But what are some ways, like becoming a parent in the future, that I can start investing in my kids? Like when I can't like kind of think back like, oh, this is how I was raised. I remember my mom kept this journal. Like what are some ways, like for like new parents who haven't had that experience when they were kids, how can they develop that in their kids when they haven't seen it?
I remember one thing that helped me. I remember vividly as a kid, I had great parents who loved God and who taught us to follow God. And they taught us that by simply watching them. But I remember I would get up, and I especially have these memories in high school. I would get up and went to school early, so I was getting myself up, getting ready, but I could hear my dad in another room praying. And when I heard him praying for me, I wasn't in the room, he didn't know I was around, but hearing his voice out loud and the words he was saying to God for me, about me, did something. And so I think the power of a child hearing a parent pray out loud for them just does something super effective, and it just sinks in. And I think it's super great for moms, but there's even something even more so with dads hearing, and it could be because I'm a girl too, hearing my dad pray for me, but both parents, I think just simply praying out loud can be a really effective tool.
Yeah, more than at the dinner table or before bed, but like on the way to school, that can kind of become like a habit and a routine that you do with your kids. So on top of praying with them, what are some routines and rituals that you can implement in your kids, like in the elementary age, as where your girls are heading, or when your boys are like in junior high? What are some routines that you've put in place for your kids, and and even y'all, what are some routines that you can do with your kids?
I had a thought a little bit different just on, but if you're a parent, kind of a first gen, like doing it, another thought that could be really helpful is get you some friends who are parenting who are not first gen, and watch some of the things that they just do naturally. Because I think there are some things where you're raised a certain way, so you just naturally do some stuff. And I mean, I was raised as a believer, but I have a really good friend who she's just shown me some rituals and things. And it's like, oh, even though I was raised Christian, it's just edified me. It's made me a better mom because I see how she does it. And I think that would be super helpful if you're like, I've never done this before. I wasn't raised with the Lord, so I don't even know how to do some of the daily life. Getting that perspective, I just think could be a really good help in that. So that was kind of jumping back, but I just wanted to say that.
Well, that's perfect. Find that community. Yeah. What are some other ways?
Super helpful. Are you talking about routines and rituals that help your kids connect with God, or other routines and rituals?
We'll do connect with God, and
Okay.
then we'll go touch into the family aspect, connecting together as well.
Okay. I talked about one. What are some things that either were done for you as a kid that were helpful, or that you did with your boys?
I think this is gonna, I'm sure this, most people do this, but we just would have time at bedtime when they were littler. We would take the time at bedtime to go through a little devotion or something like that was age appropriate, and pray together and those kinds of things. It looks different now that they're bigger, now that they're able to do the things on their own. One of the things I try to do is we're all reading. Well, I try to get them all reading Project or Bible 365. So just to bring those things up and talk about it. What did you read? What did you think? What stuck out to you? But when they were little, mostly, bedtime, we would do little devotion.
Yeah. Do they open up super easily to you and like, yeah, Mom, this is what I'm reading? Or when they kind of don't, like, or do you just gotta kind of push like, yeah, share with me what you're reading? How do you kind of do that?
Definitely. I've got one of each, one who will really open up and one who I have to dig a little more. So it's just kind of about timing, I think, with them. And then I think too, not always pushing real hard, but letting them come to me too, and being willing when they're ready to come to me to be, to listen. So
That's really good.
I think that's true. I think you have to just look for those windows, especially in conversations about God and all, because we don't want it to seem like this list of things to do type deal. That's not a relationship. So just looking for those windows. And we found when they were little, bedtime, bath time were just natural times that they seemed to just be kind of relaxed and a little more open. So when the window was open, it's like, okay, take the time and don't be in such a rush to go get the dishes done, but just take the moment there and let them talk or ask them questions. And then when they got older, same, we had one that was easy, that would just share, and one we had to kind of dig or wait for the right moment. But when those moments come, to not overlook them or slip by or dismiss them, but also to not try to force it when the window wasn't open.
One thing my parents did that I think was them intentionally giving windows was when we were in high school, my dad would take me out to breakfast every like Tuesday morning. And it was like I got to eat a restaurant breakfast, which felt very fun and special, but it was also just time, just the two of us. And then my mom did that with my brother when he was in high school. So I think that was just a way that they make, because when you're, at least for us, when we were in high school, I mean, we were running everywhere, and especially once you start driving, because you don't have that car time anymore, but they were making an opportunity, and they didn't force it. It wasn't like, so, you know, how's your relationship with the Lord?
Yeah.
But it was just, hey, let's just talk.
Yeah.
And then things naturally would come.
Yeah, that's great.
Good.
So having that intentional time with your parent and having that with your kids, what are some other ways to connect as a family, whether it's a family as a group, whether it's just you and one kid, or like each relationship with your different kids? How does some ways to connect together that way?
I think you have to really be intentional. I think it's even harder now than when our kids were little, just because there just seems to be so much opportunity. There's so many options of things to do and things to be involved in, that it's super easy to have every minute filled. So I think you have to be really intentional about schedules and looking for opportunities, but also making opportunity. One thing that we did, this was Philip's idea when the kids were young and they were about to start, we were starting the extracurricular stuff like Little League and all of that. And we realized if they both played a sport at the same time, we were going to have to divide and conquer. And we realized, oh, well, if they're both doing baseball and soccer on Saturday mornings, they're never going to see each other play. They're never going to like root for each other or be involved in each other's lives and their worlds. So we just made the decision, and I get it was a little easier because we only had 2 kids. But we gave each of them a season. So if Josh was playing baseball in the spring, Megan did whatever she was going to do, ballet or whatever, in the fall or the summer, so that we could all be a part of it. And I'm just really glad we did that, that it gave them a chance to see what each other is interested in, what they're good at, cheer for them, and root for them. And so that was something that I think was beneficial in just the schedule. We weren't running all these different places, but also in intentionally building into that relationship.
Yeah. Seeing Erica's oldest, Laura, played soccer for the first time this past year. And so I got to go up and watch her play a game, but just seeing all the other girls there, Laura's playing soccer. Oh, she's almost going to score a goal. Even though they were like playing with the grass and stuff, you did get to see that. And they're like, that is my big sister. And like to see that get poured into was really cool.
Yeah, it is. It is going to be a challenge as they get older with having all 4 of them and everything. But that is, you have to trust the Lord. Like, Lord, you know what these kids need. You know what their long-term life is going to be. So we're going to be able to pour into each one of you, let you do what you are supposed to do without overrunning our life.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are some things you did, like rituals or routines?
Let's see, I'm sorry, I've got a total blank.
No, you're good.
While you're thinking, I was just thinking of a couple of like just easy things we did. I think traditions are real helpful to just building that family. Like, we're the Moores, you know, and this is what the Moores do. This is what we do. So having some of those traditions, usually Friday nights was pizza and a movie. It was, we ordered pizza and we watched a movie together as a family. Just simple things like that. Or during December, we always had an Advent calendar with different Christmas activities every night, and it's things they still talk about. And I think that they'll do with their kids, you know. So building some just traditions. Dinner time was another one for us, and they knew most dinner times we were going to have some kind of question to talk about. We had a little box of, I can't remember, I think it was called Talk Time or Dinner Talk or something, but it was a box of cards, and we would just pick one, and it was just random questions that we all talked about at dinner.
Yeah, that's really great. I kind of want to touch back on what you said about like going to the other, like having like Josh go and support Megan and all that stuff. What are some ways you can encourage your kids to do that? Like, oh, how can you two connect together? Like, also, like, because you're connecting as a family, parent and kid relationship, but also nurturing that sibling relationship. How do you kind of help that, but then also give them the freedom to, like, you can do this too? How do you kind of do that?
One thing, I know Eric and I have talked about this before, but we just, early on, we started to refer to them, to each other, as each other's best friend. And we just said, you know, if they were having trouble getting along or something, it's like, or they hit each other or whatever, it's like, oh no, that's not how we treat our best friend. You know, that's your brother, he's your best friend. And just using those words to kind of plant that seed. Another thing that was real helpful that the kids have talked about when they were older, Josh is older, and so he drove first, and so he started taking Megan to school. And I know Megan really talked about how that was their time, the trip to school and the trip home. If they came home together, they were usually involved in stuff, but I know to school, they just had that time, just the two of them, and that meant a lot.
Yeah,
What are some things?
Yeah,
for your boys?
I think I didn't say best friends, but I tell my kid, and I still tell them today, we're all on the same team.
Yeah.
You are on the same team. We are working together. We are not working against each other. So that's one of the things I'll tell them. But I agree too about the traditions. We've got some fun traditions that we did when I was growing up, and then I've carried them on with my kiddos too. So it's things at Christmas time when we decorate the tree and how we do it and what we have there. That they look forward to every year. We'll do snick snacks when we decorate the tree, and they will still say that, like, when are we going to do that? So that is something super fun. But I think all of the little things too, making time, it doesn't have to be some huge elaborate thing or something that costs a lot of money. Lots of times the best memories are like super simple, watch a movie together, or we walked to the park and played and they crawled to the top and it was so much fun, or going to the swimming pool. Those just type of little things can make for some of the most fun memories.
Yeah. Is there anything you did, like, because you have a sister and a brother, right? Is there anything y'all did in your childhood that kind of translated into, like, your boys, that they kind of do similar?
I don't know. My family growing up, also, we were just a very close family. So, of course, we were allowed to go do things with our friends and things like that. But my parents really prioritized family time. So we would spend a lot of time together. And I've tried to do the same thing. Yeah.
No, that's great. Yeah. How do you kind of balance that with your girls, like, in the whole best friend thing and all of their different relationships? Because it's not like they just have one sibling. They have to do, like, 3 relationships.
It is different. Yeah. When you're really trying to keep all of them, they do call each other sister best friends, because then they're like, well, they're my friend best friend, they're my sister best friend, because they know
There's a difference.
there's a difference. That's fine, it's your sister. It's like, oh, but also this friend at school. It's like, well, that's my sister best friend. I'm like, okay. But yeah, it is. One thing that I think moms, with where you're managing more than just the one relationship, is you just have to be intentional to think about what relationships are happening and realizing, like, I can clearly see my older 2 are closer, the younger 2 are closer, but then you notice, oh, these 2 are having a hard time, and like these 2 and these 2 and these 2 are fine, but specifically, and for me, it's the middles. They have a harder time, and I don't know if it's the fact that they are middle children, both of them, and I don't know, but they just tend to butt heads. It also can be personality. So just giving some opportunities where those 2 get to be together, or really investing intentionally into that relationship, whether that's, I don't know, even just calling out, oh, I love how you did that for her, or vice, the other way. So it really, you do just kind of have to keep your eye on all of it, and like, okay, how's the oldest getting on with the youngest, and then this one, and then all of that all at once. So just thinking about it honestly, which sounds silly, but sometimes you just get so busy, you're not paying attention to who's fighting the most or who's really having a hard time, and then, addressing it however you can.
Yeah.
I agree. I think in parenting, it's really important to remember that parenting ultimately is really about relationships, and having relationships with your kids that last. I heard somebody say it like this, that their goal in parenting was that our kids would want to spend time with us even when they didn't have to. As they got older. And same for the siblings, that I want them to spend time together and want to spend time together when they don't have to. And ours are both grown and married now, but we just did a family vacation to the beach, and one night, we've got one grandchild, so our son and his wife said, hey, would you mind to watch the baby while the 4 of us, our son, his wife, our daughter, and her husband, all go down to the beach? We were like, yes.
Go.
We were with the grandbaby, so when. But 2, the fact that they wanted to be together and had that time for a few hours, it just blessed us. And it's like, absolutely we love, and it just made us smile that they were wanted to be together and they had a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other day I was at home and it's like this one's mad at this one and this one's mad at this, and you're just constantly okay, well, here's how you're gonna handle this, and I was like, I am gonna be so good at conflict management just from handling all your conflict with each other. Yeah.
That's funny.
But you're doing that for the ultimate goal
That's
of them
Yeah.
wanting to be together.
Yes, and so it's like we're not going to learn that we just ignore things
Yeah.
if we're really,
Yeah.
we're going to solve problems with
Yeah.
each other. And so that they want to be together, and so they learn. I'm like, this is the best training ground for learning relationship with also anybody else in life,
Yeah.
because gonna have people who you don't like or who
Yeah.
make you mad. Learn how to resolve it and work through
Yes. And as you're doing that, just keep the end in mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
What you're after.
Yes.
Because the days are long, but the years are short.
Yeah.
And it's so true. And you just
was
have to
crying.
keep that.
Okay,
long, the
I
years
can
are
do
short.
this.
Yes.
And again, Cap, we're making it. But I'm just so happy. I'm like, literally, I was crying. I was
Yeah.
like, this is a lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
And it kind of keeps going. It's not just when they're little. And
Yeah,
you're
so
managing a lot.
true.
It's even as they're getting older, and there's lots of opportunity for them to be in competition together or against each other,
Yes.
those
Oh,
kinds
yeah.
of things.
Yeah.
But like, you just keep working on it. Even just when we were on vacation a couple weeks ago, my kids both boys can tend to be at odds, lots of the time. But we were on vacation. Knox was trying to pick out his souvenir. It was something he had really been wanting. He was trying to decide which one. And my mom and I were there. We were giving input, and Ethan was talking to him too. And Ethan's like, no, I don't think that one. I think this one. I mean, they can really get onto each other's nerves. But in this moment, they're getting along, and they agreed together on it. And Knox was like, I'm going to go with what Ethan thinks. And I'm like, okay, praise the Lord. I may only see it for a moment, but I see it.
Yes.
So it's working.
Yes.
That's
The
what I
Lord is
told Nate. I said,
helping.
we're just getting into this.
Yeah.
Because it really
Yeah.
didn't happen a couple years. Like, they're so tiny. They don't know how to fight with each other.
Yeah.
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 And the door opened.
They
and
do
you're
now.
like,
I'm like, we're just barely getting started. We're only 8 years old.
gonna
We got
be
a lot of
okay.
years.
Yes.
Good.
Just a quick question to wrap it up. As you're kind of helping them form those relationships with each other, when do they kind of start being able to do it on their own? Like, because you kind of have, like, your two oldest are 8 and 7. Have they already kind of started, like, oh, this is how we're best friends or how we can grow? Do they kind of start doing that? What's a good age, you would think?
I will say, I've noticed my 8 and 7, you can tell they have a relationship. They're talking about things. They're able, like, they do, but they're definitely not ready to, like, be in that relationship without
Yeah.
my involvement and my help. I mean, you can tell because, like, they go to school together, so
Yeah.
they've got mutual friends there. So I definitely can see that they've got relationship on their own now, even more so than the others, but they are certainly not ready to do that without me being there.
I think it kind of goes, I can't remember if we talked about it here before, but kind of the 4 stages of parenting.
Yes.
Like birth to 5-ish, you're just discipline. And then like 5 to 12-ish, you're training. So you're like in the middle of it. You're running the race with them and saying, here's how we do this, here's how we do this. And then around 13, you become the coach. So you're more on the sidelines speaking into it. And I think that age, like that 13 to 18, is when they can really start to own it. And maybe you're seeing some things and making some suggestions like, hey, why don't you go check on your sister? Or, they start driving and say, hey, would you take your sister here? And make these suggestions.
Yeah.
And then after 18 or 21, college, whatever, you become friend. And then you speak into it when asked or when invited. But I think, those elementary years, you're just training, you're in it with them. And then when you can kind of move to coach to the sideline, they can start owning it a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's totally what I've picked up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. You've kind of moved in from that training to you're stepping into that coach stage because your boys are junior high and high school, right? How have you kind of stepped back and have you seen them continue to grow?
Yes, definitely. I think it's more like now I'm trying to help just kind of foster, the relationship and have input, and maybe sometimes good and sometimes it's like, no, don't follow that.
But saw your brother do that.
Don't do that.
Like no matter what he says.
But yes, absolutely. I think just kind of helping coach along, but they still need the help for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
They need the coaching.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say as a sibling, not a former sibling, but as a former child, like I remember all through high school, we never were like, oh, we're just best friends.
Oh,
like
yeah,
it never happened
absolutely.
till we moved out, and it was like, okay, we definitely were taught to be kind to one another. It was just always, I don't know, the closeness was hard, and then you move
I
out,
agree.
and it just like, oh yes, we do really like each other.
Yeah.
No, I
That's
totally agree.
when I was in college, and my just younger brother and I were in college together, and that's when we really we needed each other.
Yeah.
And really developed that friendship.
Yeah. My sister she's 5.5 years older than me. So like growing up, I was like the little sister. I was like, you are not my mom. You can't tell me what to do. And then I was in high school. She was in college, and we had like some space, which was good, but we were able to grow in that, like being distance wise further apart.
Yeah.
We were able to grow closer together. So I agree with that one. Yeah. Well, this was a great episode. Thank you guys for being a part of it. And thank you guys for joining us. And just remember that you can parent and we can help.